Hello guys, welcome to another Academic Decathlon Microeconomics video. Today we're going to be briefly discussing perfectly competitive markets. But to first understand perfectly competitive markets, we need to talk about the definition of a market itself. So you've heard the term market before, like farmer's market, stock market, flea market. These are all examples of markets, but what is the true definition of a market in economics? And it's quite simply all the buyers and sellers of a particular good or service in a specified area. So for example, we were talking about the farmer's market. That's the example of a market. All the vendors are the sellers. The people who go to buy stuff, they're obviously the buyers. But there can also be a broader market, like the market for gasoline in your community, where the sellers are the gas stations, the buyers are the people with the cars who fill up on those gas stations. Even people passing by are considered buyers in that market. And pay attention to the gas station example. We're going to use that just in a bit. They can even be even more broadly defined. So you can be like the chicken market across the entire United States, the automobile market in the entire world. Or it could just be the market for, I don't know, insects in your community. I don't know how big that market is, but it just goes to show markets can be incredibly small, incredibly large, organized, informal. It just has to be all the buyers and sellers of a particular good or service in a defined area. So now that you know what a market is, what is a perfectly competitive market? And it's a market that satisfies four conditions. The first one is that the good or service that is selling is highly standardized. And what does highly standardized mean? That basically means that the good, wherever you buy it, it's kind of going to be the same. So like gas stations, if you buy gas at one gas station versus the other, your car is pretty much going to run exactly the same. The good is highly standardized versus something like the restaurant market. There's different types of food, different prices, all sorts of stuff like that, so that it is not highly standardized. The second is that there is a large number of buyers and sellers. And the definition of the word large here is kind of blurry. There's no set number or percentage that's considered large, but you guys have a pretty good understanding of what's small, what's large. So if there are like 10 buyers and 2 sellers, that's definitely not large. But if you had like 1 million buyers and 5,000 sellers, you might consider that definitely large. There's a kind of gray zone in the middle, but just use your best judgment. There won't really be any questions about asking you, is this large or not? Just know there has to be a large number of buyers and sellers in a perfectly competitive market. The third is that all the participants, so that includes the buyers and sellers, are well informed about the market price. So for markets where the price isn't really well published, you have to kind of negotiate or talk to someone to even figure out the price in the first place. That is not perfectly competitive since all the participants have to be well informed about the market price. So something like gasoline, where you have these big signs displaying all the prices. People can get well informed because they can see all these signs. They are well informed before they go by, and also their competitors can stop by and see what the market price is. So the participants are well informed about the market price. And the fourth one is kind of a resultant of the second one, and it is that no one, buyer or seller, can influence the market price significantly. So for example, you couldn't have some billionaire come and basically buy everything out and make the price skyrocket because of scarcity. You couldn't have one seller raise their prices like crazy and raise the market price, or lower their prices like crazy and lower the market price. No one buyer or seller can influence the price significantly. And here are the 4 examples of perfectly competitive markets, and you're probably already thinking, hey, there really aren't many things like this in reality. And you'd be right. So for example, like the second condition, large number of buyers and sellers. If you're living in a small community, this probably isn't true. It's only true for like larger communities or even on like a national and international scale. Same thing with highly standardized. I use the example of gas. But gas isn't completely standardized. It's just highly standardized, and there's some gray zone there too. For example, there's some companies that put like additives into their gas that make it more environmentally friendly or something like that. Participants are well informed about the market price. Yeah, there can be things where people have the market price posted and they can go see what the prices for each of the sellers are, but they aren't going to know what all the prices are at the same time. It's not like there's markets that have just a book open with like all the prices at all times. I mean, there's some exceptions, but usually people can find out about the price and they are informed, but they aren't super well informed. Same thing, no one buyer or seller can influence significantly. Buyer, not necessarily unless there's like a billionaire, but sellers, there's often times where a seller can actually influence the market price. Maybe not like crazy, but they still can significantly where it makes a difference. And notice how in gas stations, all the prices are not exactly the same. They're similar, but they're not exactly the same, showing that it's not perfectly competitive, it's only highly competitive. So then why do we study perfectly competitive markets when there's very little markets that are actually perfectly competitive? It's because highly competitive markets like the gas market, these are really well modeled by the perfectly competitive market model, which is simpler and doesn't go into a lot of the stuff once you start taking into consideration imperfections like in the gas station example. So following 3 videos, we're going to dive into analyzing perfectly competitive markets with demand, supply, equilibrium, marginal buyers. But for now, just memorize these 4 things about perfectly competitive markets. They're really important, and I will see you in the next video.